History's biggest swindlers. For as long as mankind has walked the earth, he has always looked to take advantage of his fellow man. In the time of the Pharaohs in Egypt, tax collectors would frequently use incorrect measures to force people to overpay. Even the famous Michelangelo was arrested for selling forged sculptures in 1496. Some of you may remember the South Sea bubble from history lessons at school, when companies fraudulently inflated their share values before the stock market then crashed. However, there are two names that are synonymous with major fraud and swindlers. First, there is Charles Ponzi of the first Ponzi scheme in the 1920s. His original name was Carlo Ponzi, and he was originally from Italy. Second, there is Bernie Madoff, who used a Ponzi scheme to swindle $64.8 billion from investors over a 17-year period, up until 2008, when the financial crisis saw his scam fall apart. Ponzi schemes are easy to operate, and before Charles Ponzi went into overdrive with his scheme, smaller versions had been perpetrated, the earliest record being Sarah Howe in the USA, who set up the Ladies Deposit. She offered an attractive 8% for women-only investment scheme, which worked the way all Ponzi schemes work. With Ponzi schemes, investors are offered attractive rates of interest to encourage them to invest their saving. However, the operator of a Ponzi scheme, and it only requires one person, never makes any investments themselves, but instead uses money from new investors to pay the interest to earlier investors and to also pay them back when necessary. Charles Ponzi was so successful, but only for a while, because he offered a staggering interest rate of 50% over 45 days and 100% over 90 days for all investors. With such a high interest rate, he was able to send investors false statements of their financial returns, which being so good, saw most choose to reinvest in the scheme rather than withdraw their supposed gains. Clever stuff, eh? It was clever only up to a point though, as eventually too many people began to withdraw their funds after a series of articles appeared in the papers questioning the validity of his scheme and pointing out that 13 years earlier he had been convicted of forgery. Soon after, it became abundantly clear that it was all a scam, the investment scheme collapsing like a pack of cards. His investors lost over $20 million, which in today's money would be roughly $250 million. And after spending around 15 years in a Canadian and American jails, he was deported back to Italy. Bernie Madoff was more calculating and deceptive than Ponzi. Madoff was head of Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities, which he operated for 17 years, and originally a legitimate investment company created by Madoff when he was just 22 years old. By the late 1980s, Bernie and his brother had developed a trading algorithm that saw Bernie alone make a profit of $100 million US. But that wasn't enough for him. In the period between 1982 and 1992, Madoff had been able to offer his investors an annual return of 10%, which was not a massive profit, but attractive enough to investors as his returns were consistent, even when the stock market performed poorly. Madoff did invest money, but his returns never matched the 10% he was offering investors. So, you guessed it, he used money from new investors to pay existing ones. In the end, the game was up for Madoff in 2008, when he was arrested after he claimed his business had generated a 5.6% profit, when the Standard & Poor's 500 had dropped 39% over the same period of time. Madoff will now spend the rest of his life in jail, having received a 150-year sentence after failing to repay $170 billion US to investors. Do like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and from all of us at History HQ, we'll see you next time.